We're up here live at the $1 Million Watch Party. It's been a crazy day so far. We're in the meet-up game at the moment. Swinging around, been up and down all day. We've seen some crazy pots, the Ace-Jack bluff, one of the most insane bluffs I've ever seen, and word on the street, there's a $3 million pot about to go down in 45 minutes, which is fucking crazy to even think about. So stay tuned, we're here at Hustler Casino Live. What's the story, everyone? It's the Irishman, back again with another poker vlog. Today we're coming from Los Angeles, California, at Hustler Casino. Went down for the $1 Million game. This game is a meet-up game upstairs at the bar. They were hosting them every day. They had a watch party along so we could watch the stream every night, play some poker. It's a 2-3 game with 500 max buy-in. We were doing double board PLO bomb pots every dealer change. Everyone was having some fun. The drinks were flowing, so it was a pretty fun day. Starting off with this hand, we look down at the Mamacitas on the button. There's a limp in early position, the cut-off limps, and I make it $20 to go. Both players call and we go 3 ways to a flop. Flop comes down 10-8-3, all diamonds. We have an overpair and we do have the queen of diamonds. So when it checks to us, I think we're going to continue with a c-bet here. Don't think we need to go too big. A third or a quarter seems decent. We make it 15, only early position calls and the cut-off folds. Turn now comes an 8 pair in the second card. He checks to us again, and now I think we can definitely still continue betting and get some value from the naked ace of diamonds, naked king of diamonds, but he's certainly going to have more 8x than we have, so I think betting or checking both seem fine. We decide this time to go for the check. River now comes an offsuit 3. He bets $35, and I decide to go for the raise. I think if he did have an 8, he's going to want to just get max value from a 10, so this sizing seems kind of small. I don't think I'll have too many flushes that check back the turn. I think we're going to just keep barreling, try to get as much money in the pot as possible. So when he fires out river bet at 35, he can certainly be doing this with 10x, so I think with queens here, we're going to go for some value. We raise up to $100, and unfortunately, he makes the fold. There's a limp in middle position, and I look down at ace-6 of clubs in the cutoff. Going to raise this one up here. We make it $15 to go. Button makes the call and the limper makes the call. Going 3 ways to a flop, and it comes down ace-deuce-deuce. Checks on over to us, and I decide to go for a check. I think betting or checking is fine. I think we probably want to check some of our aces here. We're going to be betting all our ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack, so checking some of the lower ace-x. We have a poor kicker. We can certainly be up against some better aces. I think we're never going to have too many deuces here except ace-deuce and pocket deuces. I don't think anyone else should have too many deuces either, but I think a check here versus 2 players seems fine. We can go for 2 streets on the turn and the river. Turn comes another ace, giving us a full house. Gets checked to us again, and now I decide to go for a small bet of $10. I think the middle position player probably doesn't have an ace if they check twice, and if the button has an ace, we're now chopping unless we hit a 6. So I think going with a small bet, just keeping in some random non-believing pocket pairs seems good. We bet 10, the button calls and the limper calls. Heading 3 ways again to the river, and it comes to 5 of hearts, so the backdoor flush now gets there. Checks to us again, and I think we're going to bet, but we don't want to go too big. No one should really have a deuce, and we're also just chopping with all the other aces, so we want to just bet a size that makes sure that we sometimes get a crying call from a non-believing pocket pair. We fire out 55, turn over our hand, and it's good versus jack 9 of hearts for a river flush, so I think had we bet the flop, we probably get no more value. We end up betting small on the turn and getting them to pay us off with a flush on a double pair board, so I think the check worked out well for us there. We opened 7-8 of spades in early position and got a call from the button and the big blind. Flop comes down 10-9-3 with 2 diamonds, so we flop an open ender here. There is a flush draw out there. Checks to us and we fire out a c-bet of $10. Small c-bet, I think we made a mistake here. I think betting 20-25 is good. If we do have a hand like a 10, we definitely want some protection from overcards, so it's not a monotone board where we can bet super small, so I think we should have made it like $15-20 seems decent. The button folds and the big blind now check raises to $40. We're definitely going nowhere just yet. We do have an open ender. We make the call and the turn comes a 3. Pairing the bottom card. He continues and fires out 65. I think probably drawn to potentially dirty outs with the flush. We can probably just fold now with the open ender. I think out of our options, calling seems the worst. I think folding, or if we do want to continue, maybe raising seems good. We can maybe fold out some of his weaker flush draws that are barreling, but we end up making a mistake. I think we decide to go for the call, try hit one of our outs, and if we do sometimes hit our jack, we probably just lose to king queen sometimes, so this seems like a mistake calling the turn, but we're hoping to hit our hand. We make the call and the river comes the king of diamonds. We're left now with a high. If this gets checked to us, we're probably going to have to turn this hand into a bluff, but maybe unfortunately or fortunately for us, he decides to go all in for his last 280 to give us the easiest fold in history. We've only a high. There's no way he doesn't have a better hand. Even if he's bluffing, he's probably bluffing with a better hand, so we make the easy fold. In this hand, I look down at ace jack of clubs, under the gun 1 and raise to 15. Guy in C under the gun 2, 3 bets me to $50. He's a young guy, he's been playing pretty aggro, but he did say before this hand that this is his last hand. People don't usually like to punt on the final hand, but I think with ace jack of clubs, we're definitely going to peel. We're about like 150 bigs deep, or close to 200 bigs deep at this stage, so I think peeling seems fine. He definitely is going to have some bluffs here. We make the call and the flop comes 7-4-4 with 2 diamonds on 1 club, so we've 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw. We check it on over to him and he bets $30, so 30% pot. I think with ace high here we can sometimes have the best hand. We do have some backdoor, so we know this guy is aggressive. We're definitely not going to fold just yet. We make the call and the turn comes to jack of hearts. We now turn top pair. Happy days, we're liking this situation now. We're only losing to queens, kings and aces and the 1 combo of jacks that he could have potentially turned, but this guy's certainly going to have enough bluffs here. We check it on over to him again and he fires out a bet of $100. Certainly not folding. We make the call again before the river comes to king of diamonds, bringing in the flush, and now we don't have top pair. We checked on over to him and he bets $225 to send us into the tank. The king is a very bad card. We now lose to king queen, ace king. We now lose to, if he ever just has a hand like ace 5 of diamonds or ace 10 of diamonds, some of these ace x of diamonds hands. So I think after tanking for a while, it's kind of hard to find too many natural bluffs. He has to just be going crazy with like some randoms, ace queen, maybe with the ace of diamonds, something like this. But I think in the end I decided I think he probably doesn't have enough bluffs. The king is such a bad card for us. We're just going to make the lay down. It's his last hand. Hopefully if we ask him to show, he'll show. We make the fold. We ask him, can we see you're leaving anyways? He obliges and shows us king queen off for the river top pair. So we were good on the turn. We were good on the flop and the turn. I think we knew where we were at. We knew this guy was capable of bluffing, and then the river was a pretty bad card. I think it's interesting as well, he still went for max value. We can certainly have a ton of flushes as played, so we end up making the good fold on the river. So in this next hand, we've a bit of an odd one. Bear in mind, we've been on the Coronas all day, courtesy of DGAF. For the meetup game, we've buckets of Corona constantly flowing, but there's a lady in middle position who makes it 15. The cut-off calls, and I look down at pocket 10s and the small blind. Certainly going to be 3-betting this one here. I make it 75 to go, and only the woman in middle position calls. So we're going heads up to a flop. Flop comes down queen 7-5 with 2 clubs. I think generally with our whole range here, we're just going to continue for a small sizing. Getting hands like king high to fold is pretty decent here. Just a random hand like king jack of diamonds folding is a good result for pocket 10. Stuff that has 2 overcards. But in the hand, she checks out of turn. Now, it certainly wasn't an angle or anything like that, but when she checked out of turn, I kind of just got frazzled and I checked back, even though I was first to act. I don't know why I did that. It kind of just, it was a weird one. It just took me kind of out of hand and I ended up checking. Turn now comes a king, which is a pretty bad card. She can certainly have a bunch of king X. She can have some queen X. So now I think we just continue to check and hope that this gets to showdown. I check the turn and she checks back. Heading to the river and it comes an offsuit deuce. And I decide to go for a block bet. I think maybe we can just get some sticky pocket pairs to fold. I certainly don't want to check and face a big bet. We're in a pretty tough spot here with pocket tens with the 2 over cards on the board, even though it's checked all the way down to the river. So I think this makes sense as a spot to block bet. I just throw out a bet of $25. She makes the call, turns over pocket nines. We turn over our tens and it's good. So we definitely miss at least one street value on the flop by the check. It was definitely a weird one. I think the bears might come into play to check out a turn. But we end up winning the hand and take down a decent pot. This hand I look down at ace-5 of spades in middle position. I opened to 15 and the guy to my left 3-bets to 50. Filling in this hand was a really nice fella. He was there with his wife. I was sandwiched in the middle of them. Really nice couple. They were very good players, very aggressive, not afraid to 3-bet. We played a bunch of 3-bet pots together. They were bluffing off 3 streets, so it made the game really fun to go to battle with them. So shout out them if they see this. I decide to 4-bet to $130. This hand is a really nice hand to 4-bet. We're going to be re-raising here with hands like aces, kings, queens, ace, kings. So balancing it with bluffs is decent, and the suited wheel aces make the best bluffs. So ace-5 suited, we're going to make it 130. Villa makes the call and we go heads up to the flop. Flop comes down queen 10-7 with 1 spade and 2 clubs. So we have a backdoor flush draw, but given that we're going to have more of the aces, kings, queens, so I think we're going to just continue with our entire range for a small size and pray for folds. We fire out a bet of $75. He makes the fold, says he folded pocket 9, so it's nice to get the bluff through there. We had just had backdoors and one overcard, but it's definitely the power of having the range advantage here in 4-bet pots. We're just going to generate a lot of folds from a lot of hands. We open blackjacks to 15 and our nemesis in the seat beside us 3-bets to 50. We make the call and go heads up to the flop. Flop comes down 6-6-7, so we have an overpair here, pretty happy with this board. We check and he fires out a c-bet of $30. Expect him to do this with a lot of his hands. We make the call before we see an offsuit 8 come on the turn. We check it on over again and he checks back. River now comes a 9, so any 10 is now a straight. It's a 4-liner to a straight. The only 10s you should really have are pocket 10s and maybe some bluffs like ace 10 or queen 10. But I'd expect a lot of them to barrel the turn when they pick up equity, so we're just going to call. We have to see, does he have it? And he shows us the bad news. Pocket 10s for the river straight. So we lose this one this time. There's a raise to 15 and we look down at the Cowboys. Going to be re-raising this one here. We've the second best hand in poker. We make it 50 to go. Folds back to the player who raised and they decide 50 is not enough and 4-bet to 105. It's usually the sign of a pretty strong hand when they 4-bet, although I have seen this player 4-bet with air and I've also seen this player triple barrel off and jam the river as a bluff. So I end up deciding I'm going to flat to 4-bet. I think jamming or 5-betting is fine, but when we do 5-bet it's kind of hard for us to ever have bluffs. Calling also lets us keep in their 4-bet bluffs that just fold to 5-bets. I think if we had a hand like queens we'd just get it in here, so I decide to go with the call here. This could end up working in our favour or could end up being a disaster. Flop comes down 4-7-7 rainbow, so this board should not interact with either of us at all. When it's a 4-bet pot we should have a bunch of high cards, a bunch of strong pairs, so I don't think the 7 is going to hit any of us. They decide to continue with a c-bet of $75, about 1/3 standard what you'd see in a 4-bet pot. We're clearly not going anywhere ever here with the kings. We make the call, hoping that they have some random bluffs and they're going to continue blasting on the turn. Turn now comes a pretty bad card. It comes an ace. Now we lose to hands like ace king, ace queen. We're already losing to aces, but there's less combos of that out there now, and they decide to go all in for 300. And now we're in a tough spot because we now lose to a bunch of hands, and also if they had a hand like pocket queens, pocket jacks, they're not going to rip on the ace, but I think they will definitely rip this card with some of their bluffs. It's such a good card for their range. They know they can put hands we have like pocket 10s, pocket jacks, even pocket queens in the blender, so we have to make a decision here. Do we want to call? Do we want to fold? I think having 2 kings in our hand, we heavily block ace king, which would be one of the 4-bets that they bet the flop and now turn an ace that beats us on the turn. So I end up deciding what I've seen from this player. I think they're definitely capable of having some airball bluffs here. They know the ace is so good for them. They know it's going to put a lot of our hands in a tough spot, and I just think kings is too high up in our range to fold. If we fold kings, we're only ever calling when we have ace king and aces, so I think we just have to make the call and hope that it's not ace king. We have two of the kings, so the likelihood of that is definitely less likely. After a while in the tank, we decide to flick in the call, and we get the bad news. We are up against ace king and we need to hit the river. River comes at 5, no help to us, and we end up losing a pretty big pot there. I think obviously we could have just got it in pre, but we still would have lost. So I don't mind how I played it. The turn is interesting, but I think as played we probably just have to call. We could probably, if we want to start folding, fold our 10s, jacks easily. Queens is kind of tough. We could maybe fold that and then just call our kings. But yeah, rough turn there, but that's what happens. And for the final hand here, the cutoff raises to 11, and I look down at queen jack off on the button and 3-bet to $30. They make the call and we go heads up to a flop of king 9-3. We flop a gut shot here, but we're going to have the range advantage on this board. We have way more of the stronger hands, so we're going to continue with a c-bet. We fire out $20 and the cutoff makes the call. Looking for some help here on the turn, but it doesn't arrive. It comes at 4. Cutoff checks it over to us again, and I think we have a pretty nice hand here to continue bluffing for a couple of reasons. We're going to have strong hands here such as aces, ace king, king queen that are going to want to bet, and we want to have some bluffs. We do have outs to the nuts. Any 10 gives us a straight, and when we have queen jack, we block some of the best king x they can have. We block a hand like king queen, king jack, so this hand makes a nice candidate as a bluff. As far as our sizing goes, we're going to choose an overbet sizing here. If we had some really strong hands on this board, we want to be getting as much money into the pot as possible, and it allows us to overbet here and put a lot of pressure on a hand like a 9, even a hand like a weak king like king 10 is going to have some trouble knowing they're going to be firing. I'm going to be firing a big barrel on the river. Some random pocket pairs will fold, even a hand like ace high, so I think we're going to go with a big size in here. We make it 125 and get the fold. We end up wrapping up that session. We were in for $1,000, out for $11.25 for a small profit. Obviously, we torched off a nice bit there with kings, but a very fun day was had at the meetup game. Lots of very cool people. Everyone's friendly, everyone's drinking, having a good time. Shout out to Only Poker, getting us all the behind the scenes access down here at Hustler Casino. We got to interview Tom Dwan, Joey Ingram, a bunch of legends, Veronica Brill, so stay tuned to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. We've plenty more stuff coming. WSOP next month, we're going to be hitting Vegas, so keep it locked.